Hello, welcome back to War Mysteries. I'm joined, as always, by Matt.
Hello.
And I'm Jay. This week we are going to look into, essentially, a murder mystery. Something we've not really focused too much on in War Mysteries. Breaking new ground.
Yeah, we haven't had a murder, have we?
Haven't had any murders. Well, we've had a lot of murdering.
Have
just never any individual murders.
I don't know, I don't remember the content of a single episode.
Well, I'm not surprised.
Nor am I.
Yeah. At the outbreak of World War I, many young men the world over were conscripted to fight for their country. Bela Kiss, a 37-year-old tinsmith from the town of Czinkota, which is near modern-day Budapest, volunteered in 1914, even though his age meant that he wouldn't actually be required by his country to enlist. Shipping out to fight as a soldier with the Austro-Hungarian Army, he left behind a rented property in the stewardship of a housekeeper. 2 years later, in the summer of 1916, a chance discovery would be made on his property, prompting a manhunt for Kiss that would span much of the Western world over the next 3 decades. This is the chilling mystery of the Vampire of Czinkota. So, okay, let's do this one. Let's have a look in the old folder. That is actually getting pretty thick now, look at that.
Yeah.
Feel heft that weight. Yeah. So, the Vampire of Czinkota. Anything about him?
I've made some notes. Yep.
You've made some... Alright, go on. Tell us what you found. Oh, I've got pictures to show you. Brilliant, brilliant. Go on then. So, Bela Kiss, 37-year-old, he was a tinsmith. Lived in a small village called Czinkota.
Near Budapest.
Yeah. Nowadays, what was Czinkota is now actually within the city of Budapest, but back then it was on the outskirts.
Like it expanded.
Yeah, it kind of grew, and obviously encompassed lots of surrounding districts and so on. But back in the day, it was more like a township nearby.
I also found out that he had a wife.
He did. His wife, which we'll get into a bit later on, left him. So, the thrust of the story essentially is that he went to war in 1914.
Conscripted?
He wasn't conscripted.
Oh.
He enlisted himself. He was 37 years old and therefore well over the age requirement.
Had you already said that?
I did.
I didn't find out any more information. So where are we going from?
Okay, so not an awful lot is known about his younger life. I guess just records are not really available. They weren't particularly well kept, I guess. Anyway, the Vampire of Czinkota, it will become obvious why he's called that shortly. Let's do it. Let's have a look at our background. You ready for the background?
Background. I'm ready.
We need to think of a better word for it, really. Background's a bit bland.
Pretext.
Born in Ishak, Austro-Hungary in 1877, no records exist today of Bela Kiss's childhood. Because of this, it cannot be determined whether he ever exhibited any unusual behaviour that could be attributed to his later actions. It is believed, however, that during his teen years, he was involved in an incestuous relationship with his own mother, and this is considered to have a strong influence upon his crimes. That's about as much information as we've got of him as a young man. Lots to take in there, quite a lot to unpack.
Lived in the middle of nowhere then. Probably.
Yeah, pretty much.
Farm animals around.
Not much to do.
Alright. Well, so he was close to his mum.
Extreme proximity, not practicing social distancing.
That was the insinuation.
Yeah, we'll move on from that. By early 1914, Bela Kiss lived in Czinkota, which at the time was a small town on the outskirts but is now within Budapest in Hungary. He worked as a tinsmith and was a self-educated man. He had no formal schooling but instead taught himself literature, art and history and was able to converse with the most well-educated in the town.
He was also versed in astrology, and allegedly showed strong interest in occult literature. He was relatively well off for a man of his profession, and was well known and well liked about town for his light-hearted and carefree lifestyle. He had been in a relationship with a woman known only as Maria. Her familiar name is not known, as she is only ever referred to in documentation as the wife or partner of Bela Kiss. There are in fact no records indicating marriage, with subsequent events strongly suggesting she was simply a long-term partner.
So, like, cohabiting, I suppose, like you would now. Which is weird, because back then, people kind of married at the drop of a hat, really. Especially out in the country. Maybe she was married to him, but there's no registry office record.
Maria eventually disappeared, though under somewhat unusual circumstances. Allegedly, she had alighted with a lover, with Kiss stating to those who asked that she had run away to America with another man. Shortly after she had left, he hired a housekeeper by the name of Mrs. Jakubecz, who would perform the duties of the household for him, and he began to correspond with several women through newspaper advertisements, offering his services as a fortune teller, but later scouting for a partner. Many young women would come to his house over time, but no one seemed to stay for very long. Potential suitors, it seemed, were not difficult to come by, but none apparently fit the bill.
You know, I've got a beer this week.
No.
Oh, okay. So kind of like Lonely Hearts ads sort of thing.
Tinder.
Well, the 1911 version of Tinder, yeah. Yeah.
Didn't have apps then, did they?
No, it was
Definitely not.
no 4G back then. Barely had telephones. But they did have wireless. So he had a lot of women coming around. Obviously he had his housekeeper, Mrs. Jakubecz.
Nice house, was it, you think?
I've seen a few pictures. I don't know if there's any in here. There it is. The picture's tiny, but well, do you want me to move it over my face this time again?
That's a good picture, actually.
It's not great.
Pop it up. I think it's alright. Shows the... And his property's on the left, yeah?
Well, yeah, there's a few buildings. It's like a small holding
Okay.
kind of thing.
Excellent.
Anyway, nice place.
During this period, Kiss had been stockpiling metal drums at his residence, and when a policeman had inquired about them, believing he might be distilling alcohol illegally, Kiss remarked that he was storing gasoline as a preventative measure should war reach Hungary. By the time war reared its head in mid-1914, Kiss had enlisted, leaving behind his rented accommodation for Mrs. Jakubecz to maintain in his absence.
Kiss had been stockpiling metal drums.
What, like for like a steel band or something?
No, like a fuel drum.
Okay.
Like, 80-gallon drum or whatever.
But you can get steel drums, can't you, and turn them over, and that's how you...
Yeah, you can.
He wasn't a member of a steel band.
He wasn't a member of Steel Band.
No, alright.
No. He was a tinsmith.
Well, tin band then. I don't know if it sound the same.
I don't know what the hell you're on about.
No.
The drums are all around the house. In the yard, some in the garden, some in the road. He's like, the policeman turns up. He's like, well, you got all these drums around. Quite a lot. What are you doing with them? Are you distilling alcohol?
Are you starting a steel
Are
band?
you starting a tin band or whatever? He says, no, I'm storing petrol. Pretty easy thing to disprove though, isn't it? He just takes him at his word, does he? Not great police work, really. All he had to do was lift the lid. Look in, not petrol. Definitely not petrol in there, mate. So, what do you think so far then? He's gone off to war, left his house, a load of drums. Innocent enough.
Some geezer left a load of gasoline. He could have took it with him, couldn't he? He would have been respected on the front for taking all that gasoline with him.
Maybe. I mean, the army would probably have had their own. But, no, maybe.
Okay. It is a bit of a mystery though, isn't it?
That's why we're here. The boys are here for that. A bit of tea. John! Who are you shouting at?
crew.
So he's gone off to war. He's left all these drums behind. His wife's buggered off. Obviously, something has to turn this into a mystery. We're going to see now what they discovered.
Two years passed. In July of 1916, the lease on the property that Bela Kiss had rented had lapsed, prompting the landlord to attend to assess repairs prior to releasing. The landlord discovered the stored barrels and became a little concerned upon poking a hole into one of the drums when a rancid stench emerged. Alarmed, he contacted the local police to have them searched, presumably harbouring the same concern that they had originally, that perhaps Kish had been illegally storing alcohol or another illicit substance. The police constable recalled the conversation with Kish in previous years, that he was stockpiling gasoline in the event of war, but nonetheless decided to attend, since the landlord insisted the smell was decidedly not that of petrol, but the stench of death.
So he goes up to this barrel, I very much doubt he used a finger on it, probably just stabbed it with a screwdriver.
Phillips. Yeah, probably
Phillips. Phillips head. Stabbed a hole in it, this rancid stench comes out.
Feta, cheese, making something. It's going to be bodies, isn't it? Come on.
The smell was decidedly not that of petrol, but the stench of death.
Told you.
Yeah.
No, I think, the stench of death.
Well, it's not looking good, is it? It's not feta in there, and it's not petrol, which was probably pretty obvious from the title of the video, unless you just clicked on the thumbnail. Which, if you did, great.
Upon actually opening one of the drums, the men found that there was in fact a large quantity of wood alcohol, or methylated spirit, inside, but also the preserved naked remains of a strangled woman in a sack, the garrote used to kill her, still around her neck. Initially, 7 such barrels were found dotted around the exterior.
That's the first one they found at the top, which, we're all adults here.
It's not very nice, is it?
No. And there's the garrote there. Bit leathery.
And they're the others, are they? The rest of them?
Yeah.
Cracking.
Cracking.
So, bodies have been found.
So there's 7 barrels that they've found.
They're going to go and get Geezer then, from the war. He's at war.
He's gone off to war. But they're not quite done yet, unfortunately. But you can see where this is going.
After a more thorough search of the house and property, a total of 24 bodies were discovered, all pickled in alcohol, stuffed into metal drums, every one of them strangled. The corpses included those of his ex-partner Maria, the man she had left Kish for, and 22 other young women. Strangely, it was later noted that a number of these women had deep bite marks to the neck, the skin broken, leading the investigators to postulate that Kish may have been exsanguinating his victims by drinking their blood.
Hickeys.
Not quite. No, the skin had been punctured.
Like a vampire.
Kind of like a vampire. Which is where the name came from. The corpses included those of his ex-partner Maria.
We know she
didn't make it to America. Didn't even make it out of the postcode.
Didn't make it out the back door.
Didn't get far. The man that she had left Kish for, so there was a bloke in there, and 22 other young women.
Everyone's got a hobby.
Yeah. He was a tinsmith. Why not just make little soldiers or something? Why? Busy boy.
Later in the investigation, a room was discovered behind a locked door inside the back of the house, revealing a much deeper conspiracy. Correspondence with 174 different women from the Budapest area, totaling well over 500 letters. Most were proposals of marriage. Books of various subjects, such as poisoning, anatomy, and methods of strangulation, lined the bookcases in the room. There were also old occult tomes regarding dark magic. It was clear what Kish had been doing: luring young women to his home on the promise of marriage, extorting money from them, and then murdering them, hiding their bodies in the drums. Exactly what became of Bela Kiss from this point onwards is unknown, though there are a number of theories. His exploits led him to be labelled the Vampire of Czinkota.
A hidden room, hidden behind an old locked door. It's not really hidden.
Room behind a locked door.
Yeah, so there's a room on the house behind a door. And the maid, Mrs. Jackie Betch, was like, "Oh, we never open that door. You know, it's locked. The key's there." So, you know, she was only ever unlocking the door and opening the door away from finding out what he was doing. But never mind.
Did she unlock the door?
No, she never went in. Books about methods of strangulation. Did they not have libraries back then?
Yeah, with books about methods of strangulation.
Yeah, but have you ever seen a book about any method of strangulation? I mean, we read some pretty weird stuff, you know. You in particular. Anyway, they lined the bookcases.
VHS copies of the X-Files.
Eh?
VHS copies of the X-Files.
You can't. I didn't mean repeat it. I meant explain what the hell you're on about. There were also odd occult tomes regarding dark magic, apparently.
Just because you find a few books about Harry Potter doesn't mean you're a vampire, does it? He's not a vampire, is he, Harry Potter?
No.
Tom Cruise in.
Okay, better.
So
more accurate.
Right. So let's get him.
Exactly what became of him from this point is unknown, though there are a number of theories, because there's always theories.
Yeah.
We've always got a theory or two, or in this case, 3.
Okay.
Right.
Did the cops go and try and get him back from the trenches, or did they just say this is not going to happen?
These theories kind of follow a bit of a chronology, so I have to kind of
use your book.
I've got to use my book.
Did you make that?
Yeah. Let's find out then, through our theories, what actually happened. So our first theory is that he was killed in action.
Since he had in fact enlisted as a soldier, and military records place him with frontline combat forces in the 40th Onved Infantry Brigade, one theory circulates around the idea that Bela Kiss may simply have been killed in action. There is some evidence that his unit suffered heavy casualties in the Carpathian mountain range, a range that stretches across the Czech Republic and Poland, while a large swath rests in Romania. It was for the most part a heavily forested mountainous region, and formed part of the Greater Eastern Front during World War I. There was bitter combat here between Russian and Romanian forces, and those of Austro-Hungary, particularly in mid-1916.
And there was a big battle in the Carpathian Mountains that his unit was definitely involved in.
So it's possible he just died.
The 20th of August 1916, he was seen, apparently, being killed in the Carpathian Mountains.
Somebody said, I saw him get shot.
Someone in his unit apparently saw him get shot.
Well, that's mystery solved. What are we here for then? It's World War One. Of course there's nobody.
But he wasn't blown up, he was shot.
Well, yeah, but then he would have got sunk in the mud.
He's in the mountains.
Alright. In the snow then. Gone forever.
You think we're done? I mean, we could be done if you want.
No, we might as well do the other
carry on.
theories,
Yeah,
but I'm pretty solid on
death.
Dead.
Death.
Went out with a gun to mess around with other people with guns in the mountains.
Kiss may have been wounded during the Brusilov offensive in August, an event that forced Germany to divert critical manpower from the Western Front. Records did seem to indicate that Kiss had succumbed to typhoid while recuperating in a Serbian hospital, a disease that was approaching epidemic levels at that time. If these records are to be believed, and there was no foul play involved, this may very well have been the end of him.
So it's possible. His body, though, was never formally identified. So there is actually no record.
So he
of
might not have died in the mountains.
Yeah, well, exactly. He may have been injured. He may have been killed. But this is where it all starts to get muddy. He was sighted in the Belgrade hospital. There's letters and all sorts. So this is where it carries on from that.
Okay.
Theory 2 assumes, obviously, that he didn't die in the battle, but that he died on the run.
This theory follows on chronologically from the previous one. Word had reached the Budapest police that Kiss was recovering in a Serbian hospital. By October 4th of 1916, a detective named Kalali Nagy had been dispatched to track Kiss down in Belgrade, Serbia, arriving at the hospital itself to find that, while a corpse lay in the bed that Bela Kiss had been assigned, it was not him. It is theorised that he may have switched military identification papers with another patient and then escaped. From here, the various subsequent theories diverge. As far as having died elsewhere, but also on the run, Kiss was rumoured to have met the following fates.
Well, not Morris dancers, a spread, and a bouncy castle, and a sort of burger van. Not a fate in that sense. You mean F-A-T-E. Clear that up. Clear these things up before.
I don't even think I need to quantify that with an answer, really. Died in Turkey of yellow fever, which apparently was rife at the time during the war.
Bad.
That's about all they've got on that one.
Don't want to be getting that.
Imprisoned and possibly executed in Romania for burglary. I mean, looting did happen quite a lot during the war, but being executed for looting.
No, I don't think that was the case.
Deserting, I could understand. They'd shot you people for that, but looting, probably not. Or burglary, or whatever. Died in captivity as a prisoner of war, though in 1915, so a year before he was shot, where the body was not identified, although there is a gravestone in the Valjevo cemetery that is inscribed Bela Kiss 1915. Bela Kiss was quite a common name, apparently.
Really?
Yeah, apparently so. At the time, it was it's like John Smith. How, I don't know.
But it might be him.
It may be, but it would mean that the letters that were sent to the police officer in Hungary from the front about Bela Kiss being in hospital would have been about another person.
There could be loads of them.
It could be anybody, yeah. So that's about all there is to go on. And that's what the gravestone says.
Oh, yeah.
It gets a bit tricky from here. Succumbed to injuries or died of exposure after having escaped from the hospital in Serbia. So he knew the police were coming for him, which is why there was a different body in the bed.
Went on a run.
Went on the run.
Into the cold.
Yeah, because, you know, he familiar ground for him at that time would have been home or the mountains he was just fighting in.
The ones with all the snow in.
With the foresty, snowy, yeah. Or just, you know, of exposure, died of exposure. It was getting towards the end of the year, towards winter. Possible. Executed south of Eindhoven in Morocco in 1920 while serving with the French Foreign Legion. Which is a real tangent to go off on. There's a whole sub-theory about how he joined the French Foreign Legion under a different name.
Well, they change your name anyway, I think, when you join.
Do they?
Pretty sure they change your name.
I didn't know that. Wow. Okay, that would explain then. Hoffman. He changed his name to Hoffman. Apparently.
I think they
Okay,
keep
no.
it,
Every day's a school day. Shot and killed while attacking the Colombakar fortress in Algeria in 1929 while serving with the French Foreign Legion. He was allegedly shot twice from range with a medium caliber rifle and was killed immediately.
What?
When attacking, they were attacking a fortress.
So which bullet killed him though? Because if he was killed immediately, it must have been the first bullet.
That's just what I've read.
Second one didn't matter.
That second one just hit him. You know. There was a little bit of information. There was a snippet about that, which came up in a newspaper somewhere. There, the Fresh Ushjag or Ushag French Foreign Legion serial number. Even though the serial number, he was shot and killed attacking an Arab fortress. Is on September the 27th, 1929. So a long, long time after these barrels were found. This is 15 years away now.
Well, he got away with it, really, didn't he? Regardless of what one you believe. But
In theory, yeah.
he did fight for his country a bit, so... That doesn't get him off. Maybe if he just killed one.
Succumbed to typhoid in a Belgrade hospital in 1915. Which we mentioned earlier. So, those are all of the possible ways in which he died on the run, having not been caught for what he did. So there's a lot there. There's a lot of different tidbits floating around. Most of these came from articles that are all written down here. But essentially, he may have gotten away but not lived for very long. The French Foreign Legion one seems to be the most credible because there's quite a few articles about this guy.
Yeah, well, that would be a good place to run off to.
Once he knew the police were onto him, it perhaps explains why he volunteered to join the army in the first place. Because he knew he couldn't get in on conscription, so he would have just said, right, I need a way out of the country.
This is the package. Do you need me?
Here I am. Send me to the front. And of course, they're going to be eager for men, aren't they? So...
He was eager for women.
He was.
Well, fortunately, they caught him. Did they?
No.
No.
No, he got away. Whatever happens, unless one of these theories is correct and he was killed, he
Got all that. So, he got away.
Well, that's theory number 3. So, assuming that he didn't die in action, he wasn't killed in action during the war, and he wasn't killed or otherwise ended up dead on the run, the third and final theory is that he may have escaped.
Word reached the Budapest police that Kiss was recovering in a Serbian hospital. By October 4th, a detective had been dispatched to track him down in Belgrade. Upon arriving at the hospital, Nagy had found a deceased soldier in the bed that was assigned to Kiss, but it was not him. Compiling every known sighting and reporting of Kish's whereabouts leads a trail across the Western world, and his apparent flight from the authorities in Serbia is only the beginning of the web.
1st of May 1916, he is allegedly living with a man named Red, not the guy from the Shawshank Redemption, working at a wagon factory, which I assume is, just making wooden carts for horse-drawn carts, and was witnessed by a woman named Silania in northwestern Hungary.
Witness working there?
He was witnessed working at a factory.
By this bird?
By this girl, and she knew that he was living with this man called Red. A newspaper reported that locally. Between the 20th and the 24th of August 1916, he was sighted in combat with the 40th Honved Brigade in the Carpathian Mountains, which is where he's supposedly shot.
Alright,
so that's 4 months later. The 4th of October, last confirmed sighting. He's sent to a military hospital in Belgrade in Serbia, and there are records for that, so really it is known that someone called Bela Kiss went to the hospital.
Yeah, but like you said, Bela Kiss.
Yeah, was it this guy? Yeah, exactly.
Can't rely on it, can we? If his name was something easy like Yoda, then maybe it'd be totally different.
Yeah, it would be easy.
Never mind.
It'd also be a lot easier to see.
I've got something in my eye!
Spring 1919. So we're now 2.5 years later.
Okay.
He's sighted on the Margaret Bridge in Budapest by a person from his past. Who that is, I don't know, but someone that used to know him when he was younger, presumably. 20th of September 1920. 6 years on from the drums. There is a report in the Eger People's newspaper that states the Vampire of Czinkota has been spotted in northern Africa serving with the French Foreign Legion. So the whole Morocco-Algeria thing we heard about earlier on when he was attacking the fortress and he got shot. And you wondered which bullet killed him.
First one.
Killed
him instantly. So now he's in
northern Africa.
There, he gets around, doesn't he?
Yeah, so far we've had Serbia, we've had back in Budapest again, that would be pretty dumb, and northern Africa with the French Foreign Legion. Additionally, he was claimed to be living with, or possibly even married to, a Moroccan woman in Morocco. At this point, he was alleged to have deserted the French Foreign Legion under the name of Hoffman. Now, as you said, you changed your name when you joined.
Yeah, I think they changed your name. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's part of the whole shebang.
So that
Unlucky
kind of
if that's what
supports
they
it.
have the name. They give him Hoffman.
Hoffman. Which again is quite a common name.
Why does it have to be like that?
16th of November 1920, so 2 months later, another article in Nirividek, which is a newspaper, states he was serving as Deputy Lajos Fekete in a different regiment with the French Foreign Legions. On this same day, a report in Esztergom, which is another newspaper, indicates that he was in the region of Ain-Lure, which is Morocco. Mid-year 1927, so we're a long way off now. The 8-hour newspaper states Bela Kiss was transferred to China on detachment as a lieutenant with the French Foreign Legion. So now he's in China, allegedly. 27th of September 1927, the newspaper Fresh Uzshag places Kiss in the Colombakar region in Algeria, which is what we talked about earlier when they attacked the Arab fortress. And that's the article that states he was shot and killed immediately.
First bullet. Getting close to the end of that now, yeah?
Yep.
Excellent.
Yeah, we are. 10th of February 1932.
Yes.
He was spotted, allegedly, by Henry Oswald, an NYPD homicide detective, emerging from the Times Square subway station in New York City. He was subsequently lost in the crowd. Now, this guy, Henry Oswald, had to read a bit about him just to figure out what was going on. He was one of those guys that had almost eidetic memory. He could see someone's face and he'd never forget it.
I imagine he looks a bit like Noel Edmonds. The Hungarian Noel Edmonds.
There he is.
Yeah, you're not going to forget him, are you?
No.
But then he's probably not going to carry that broom and wear that hat everywhere.
That's a rifle, I think.
Whatever.
1st of August 1933, so over a year and a half later, the Fresh newspaper reported that Kiss was arrested in the US, though the paperwork that was sent to the Hungarian authorities that stated this information was treated with caution.
Was it poisoned or something?
No.
Anthrax?
No. They just didn't believe that it was him. They didn't believe he could have got that far.
Well, he's been all over.
It's been all over.
So they believed, but China surely...
China is a bit of a misnomer because it just turns up just the once in that article. Could just be a fluff piece, you know.
Just holiday.
Slow news week, I suppose.
Right.
Second World War's coming, so they should have waited. Mid-year 1934, a Hungarian traveller claimed to spot Kiss in Times Square, New York City. So 2 years after this subway sighting, someone else from Hungary,
He's seen him in the same place.
likely from Budapest, and knew about the guy because
Maybe. Liar. What's the next one?
Okay. April 1936, local rumours circulate around Kiss working as a janitor in a tenement building on 6th Avenue. And the rumours are sufficient to attract police attention in the city.
Well, so they go down to the building.
They go down there. The janitor left the building in a hurry, and by the time the lead was followed up on and the investigation started, he was nowhere to be found. He did not return. So someone might have tipped him off.
Unless it wasn't him and the janitor was wanted for something anyway.
Yeah. No further evidence of Kiss emerged, and he was never seen again. So that's the end of his little timeline. Now, I've left the conclusion open on this one because I want you to make the decision. Normally, I write a bit of a diatribe and we kind of decide through some angling on my part.
I think my conclusion would be that it is a mystery.
We're going to go with that, yeah? All right. Unknown.
Taking into account the sheer scale of the First World War and the massive number of people involved, it would have been relatively easy to disappear without any trace. Even the most determined effort to locate an individual would have meant simply a gargantuan search, running down all possible leads and sightings, and all without the aid of modern technologies such as surveillance cameras and electronic records. Even post-war, the difficulty in tracking down one person with only eyewitness accounts and the occasional newspaper article, often only expanding on rumours or even just fluff pieces, must have seemed an insurmountable task. Given the relatively widespread sightings, it is reasonable to assume that Kish may have indeed escaped somewhere, but beyond a few repeated reports in New York in the 1930s, there is too little information available to draw a likely conclusion.
So, essentially, there is not really enough information to go. There's not really enough information to go on to find out what happened to him. He may have died in the war, he may have escaped and then died on the run, or he may have indeed been spotted in New York. I mean, frankly, it doesn't really matter because he was 37 years old in 1914, so he's definitely dead now. But yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. No one really knows. No one's ever followed up on it.
I think it's worth remembering that it was in World War I that all this happened.
It was.
So
some of it was before it.
Nobody knew what was going on.
Bit of a weird name though, isn't it? Vampire of Czinkota. I think it was a newspaper that brought that one up to start with. One of the articles we looked at that mentioned him. But whatever happens, he's dead now, so there's not going to be any real justice. You know what's coming next.
The Austro-Hungarian armed forces lost an estimated 1.1 million combatants during World War I, in addition to 450,000 dead prisoners of war, and a further 300,000 individuals who went missing completely, never to return. How difficult would it really have been to disappear into these statistics? Bela Kiss lived through what was almost certainly an out-of-the-ordinary childhood. The motivations behind his actions may stem from these experiences. Perhaps he had undiagnosed mental health problems, or he may simply have enjoyed exercising power over others, having first murdered Maria and her new partner shortly after she left him. He managed to evade detection for the entirety of his residence in Czinkota, despite police interest in his gasoline barrels and Mrs. Jakubec's knowledge of his hidden room, which would seem to indicate he was adept at manipulating people and weaving believable narratives. In short, a capable liar. This deceptive nature no doubt assisted his flight from justice in later years, as evidenced by the apparent switching of hospital beds and military records. The war itself gave him a convenient excuse to leave the country, and thus his criminal past behind, likely believing that he could simply disappear into the inevitable mayhem and start a new life elsewhere. Did he really join the French Foreign Legion? And if so, where did his military service take him from there? Was he killed attacking the Arab fortress, or did he in fact survive and remarry there? And what of the reported posting to China? If none of these hold water, then how much truth is there to the stories heard from New York? And could he possibly have been the mysterious janitor on 6th Avenue? Who was the Hungarian traveller who claimed to spot him? Over 100 years later, no one survives to fill in the blanks. Taking all sightings, articles and other evidence into account leaves us with more questions than it does answers, and it seems quite plausible that Bela Kiss could simply have ended up anywhere. His crimes left their grim mark on history, but like innumerable others during the Great War, he exists now only in written record. The true fate of the murderous Vampire of Czinkota is lost forever.
Yes.
So that's that. That's the Vampire of Czinkota, the guy who essentially was a mass murderer, serial killer, if that's what the term was, I suppose. But yeah, pretty horrendous, pretty horrific, you know. The only reason that they really were keen on these barrels was because there were shortages.
Mm.
And they were looking for fuel. And they thought he had a ton of it and he'd buggered off to war and left it all there and he was hoarding it. So they were like, let's have a bit of this. And obviously the landlord got suspicious, started poking around, quite literally. And then the stench.
And the bodies.
And the bodies. And his wife. He killed his wife. / partner. Probably his wife, quite frankly. Ended up killing a load of women and one bloke. And making up stories about how they weren't suitable or how his wife went to America and so on. But was really just lying through his teeth and he'd killed them all. In his secret room. So, what do you think happened? I mean, we obviously can't figure it out. If he changed his name, that kind of ends the paper trail there, really. You could have changed it to anything. So he disappeared into obscurity. Let us know down there in the old comments pit. There's other episodes to watch on our channel if you fancy a bit more mystery.
Some real mysteries.
Oh, they're so mysterious as well. Cause,
real mysteries.
oh, God.
And they are mysterious.
They just never get solved. So join us again for our next one. Thank you for watching this. We hope you enjoyed it. He really hopes you enjoyed it, don't you?
Yeah, no, I do. I do hope you enjoyed it, and I enjoy it. I do like being a part of War Mysteries and being a part of the bigger team that we are. You know, I know that at the minute you can just see the studio and the limited stuff, and but actually there's quite a big team around us here of people. There's about 15 people in the team completely. They're quiet. But yeah, so we've obviously this boom operator and we've got camera and then some of the catering crew over there. So food wasn't very good tonight, actually.
It's fine, yeah, it was
I
rubbish.
didn't think.
What do you reckon? The old vampire.
I think it's good. You made a whole book this week as well, which is good. 3 staples in that. You bound it and everything. Quality. Maybe we'll have a competition. Maybe I'll sign this and we can give it away next week. Should we say thank you to any of our new subscribers?
Yeah, all right. Yeah. We had a new subscriber 49 minutes ago, so he's going to get a special mention. That is George Apostolos. Thank you very much for that. We hope you appreciate this episode. Now you've got a very special mention at the end.
Welcome, George.
Welcome, George.
Just got in there with when the show was being made. Welcome.
Who else have we got? Let's have a look. Ninja Noto 2. Interesting name. Ben Hargreaves as well. Thank you very much for subscribing.
Welcome, Ben. Be very disappointed if any of these people then did unsubscribe. We can't find out though, can we?
Yeah, they're permanently in there. We've also got Douglas Kern, Sandra Bentley.
Welcome both.
Sir Yeti. Cool name. That's a good name.
Is he actually knighted though?
He may well be.
And a Yeti.
You never know. And also Kevin Badmuller. Hope I've said that correctly. Thank you very much for subscribing, guys. We appreciate it. It really helps us to grow as individuals and as a team. So thank you very much. And that's enough for us. You know, I'm sure you've had enough of us rambling. So I'm going to get out of here. You can stay here if you want. You staying there?
Well, I'll stay here for now.
All right. Have a V2.